Let me write this introduction real quick.
Okay.
A Doof Media podcast. Checking into the hotel Flanafornia. Is that something?
Yeah.
Is it? You just humoring me.
Especially if you go, no.
I mean, can we just take that read of it I just did there and put that in the show? I think that's the only way you make it work. Hello and welcome to Flanagan's Wake, a Doof Media podcast. Okay, I'm trying to be energetic here, but the truth is Mike Flanagan made a television show about children dying, and it's really hard to tell funny intro jokes, Matt. It's just you do it, Matt. You do it.
Yeah, we're gonna do our best, folks, but you're just gonna have to tolerate maybe some less chuckles or maybe some slightly more rough chuckles than we historically have been making. But we got a lot of good TV show to talk about, setting all that aside.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's gonna be a great 10 weeks. It's just I think I sat down here for 10 minutes trying to come up with a funny intro joke, and I was like, everything that occurred to me was monstrous and horrible, and I
Right.
cannot be ever repeated ever. So that's where we are. That's the introduction. Yeah. Are you all excited now? Because this week on the show, we are beginning our fourth television show on the podcast. We are beginning 2022's The Midnight Club. We will be discussing episode 1 of the show, titled The Final Chapter, in which our main character, Ilanka, a 17-year-old salutatorian, finds out that she is dying and heads to a young adult hospice to wait it out. Or maybe not to wait it out, Matt? Maybe not.
Maybe that is not what motivates her.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. I think intro joke, non-joke aside, this is a very dour topic for a television show. But I also think after the first episode, you can kind of tell that the show is going to also have a good time while being very sad. It's not like it's going to hit one tone throughout. It's not at all.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think there's weird edge case double standard type stuff that happens, funnily enough, because Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor, Midnight Mass, these are all shows that have death, suicide, murder, just horrible things happen in these shows, right? But because they're genre stories, we put them in a different part of our brain, right? And we don't, at least so far, and based on the novel that we read, it's not really a genre story. This show might become a genre story. I don't know yet. The book certainly wasn't. And that just makes it feel weird, feel a little icky to be silly about, even though, and honestly, yeah, it's just a subject matter that people don't typically find that amusing for understandable reasons.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but I think we're going to have a good time.
Yeah.
All right, so the Midnight Club itself. So let's talk about the show as a whole before we get into this episode. As we said, this was a 2022 series released for Netflix on October 10th. It is based on the works of Christopher Pike. Obviously, similar to Bly Manor, it was primarily one story, which is the Midnight Club. We talked about that last week. But similar to Bly Manor and Henry James, it also borrowed stories from many other Pike books. It was created by Mike Flanagan and his co-creator, Leah Fong, who was a producer and a writer on Bly Manor. She was also a writer and co-producer on Steven Spielberg's Amazing Stories for Apple, and she was a writer for the television show The Magicians, which is a show I quite liked, about a book that you and I both liked a lot. Matt, the Midnight Club is an interesting animal. I think it's fair to say that it's Mike Flanagan's least loved television project. That is, of course, not to say that people don't like it. I think there's plenty of people that like it. And I think the people that enjoy Mike Flanagan have found many things to like about it. And I've seen people that put it up there with Midnight Mass and Hill House that are saying like, this is, in my estimation, the same quality as those things. And I do think, based on the first episode, I think we are going to have a lot of fun stuff to dive into. But if I'm being entirely honest with you and with our listeners, I did struggle with the Midnight Club more than I've struggled with anything so far in this project. Just there are parts of it that I did not like particularly well. And there are parts of it that I loved. And I actually am looking forward to this conversation, maybe trying to dive in and figure out the whys of that, why that is.
You know, I will say, I don't think I've said this to you yet, but it's actually been a fantastic boon that everything I've heard so far has been, this is the bad Mike Flanagan show, because it has lowered my expectations. And so I'm really enjoying it, actually. After the first episode, I thought it was really good. And I'm excited to talk about it with you. And, you know, maybe that'll just continue to be the case. And we'll just, by the end, we'll just be like, hey, maybe people's expectations weren't properly calibrated. I don't know.
Fair, we'll see. And I also think you're always grading on a curve a little bit, right? We talked about this last week with the book, but also like saying this is the not as good Mike Flanagan show, I think is like, it's all relative, right? So like, I still think there's plenty to love in this episode and this entire show. We mentioned this on the show last week, just in case y'all skipped the book. I do want to reiterate this again. I actually never finished The Midnight Club when it first came out. I made it to the Netflix standard 2.5 episodes before I fell off of it. Don't even remember what the specific reason was. I didn't have like a specific moment or thing where I'm like, I'm done with this. This isn't clicking with me. It's just sometimes in your TV watching, you know, you got 20 different things going on that you want to watch, and stuff just slides to the back burner and then eventually falls off. And that's what happened to me. I did go back and rewatch it before, I say rewatch it. I went back and watched it before this conversation with you, Matt. So I have watched all 10 episodes on my own. I did that while we were watching Midnight Mass, and I'm ready to slide back into our comfortable dynamic of me pretending like I know everything and you knowing absolutely nothing, and yet still somehow knowing almost everything.
Hooray.
So I wanted to address this at the beginning because I do know a little bit about what went down with this show. There are things that have been talked about publicly with the show, and hopefully we'll be able to talk with Mike at the end of it and maybe learn as much of the full story as he's comfortable sharing. But I do want to be careful here with you because, I think you are correct that your expectations have been lowered by the way people talk about the show, myself included. I don't want to reveal too much of what happened with Midnight Club to you. I want that to be maybe a thing we circle back around to when we complete the show. But I think it is fair to say that here at the beginning that Mike and Leah experienced a fair amount of our good friend studio influence on this one. You know, Mike, I'm comfortable saying this to you because Mike mentioned on an interview, right? That like, I think the thing he specifically said was they got away with a lot of stuff in Midnight Mass, but that bill kind of became due in Midnight Club. They were much closer. They were monitoring the creation of this show a lot closer. And that I think led to some difficulties. And that's not to say that there's not like that every single project in creation always has these push and pull between studio and creative. Like even, for example, Midnight Mass, which last week we like praised, or 2 weeks ago we praised for being like the one thing that Mike Flanagan got to do on his own with no influence, got to truly make the project that he wanted to make. That still had notes from the studio, right? In fact, the one thing I said that I didn't like about the finale of Midnight Mass, which was the moment with Warren and Lisa in the boat, we got a message from Mike after that episode, and he was like, well, funny you should mention that. That was a note from Netflix that they wanted to add that. I didn't want it. I didn't think it was necessary, but I compromised with them. So like, this thing is always a compromise. Just want to make sure we understand that at the beginning. But it seems like, from what I understand, that the Midnight Club required a lot more demands for compromise from Netflix than some of Flanagan's previous projects. Like, you know, Mike Flanagan does not create with Netflix anymore. He has nothing but good things to say about them, but he decided to take his ideas and go elsewhere. This is his second to last show. He makes Usher after this, and then he's not with them anymore. So I think we can probably speculate that what happened, whatever it was on the Midnight Club, is part of that. But a lot of stuff kind of clouding this one as we actually get into it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, we talked quite a bit last week when we talked about the book, about the difficulty of marketing the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't help but think, especially as I was watching this episode, about how those very difficulties migrated over to the show in all likelihood, where it's like, how do you market this sad, introspective, meditative book about death where all the characters are children? Well, you market it as a ghost story and you pretend there's a ghost in it, even though there's not a ghost in it. and I just feel like in the show, possibly, again, you and I are sort of guessing here, right? But it kind of feels likely, at least, that Mike Flanagan wanted to make a meditative, introspective story about dying young people. Maybe have some supernatural elements in there.
Sure.
And then Netflix is like, more ghosts. More ghosts and blood.
Yeah.
Blood and ghosts everywhere in the marketing and several times in the episode. This is my first reactions on the topic that we're talking about.
Sure. Yeah. And this is why I'm very glad we read the book first, because I think it does help us have a very clear picture of what the story actually is in the book. And yes, there are creative adaptive choices. And then there are just requirements of the machine that you're working in. I think I want to be careful not to, like, every time I don't like something, be like, oh, this must be the studio influencing, like, because sometimes there's just, sometimes I think certainly there will be times that it's that, I think. And then sometimes you're just like, I didn't like this thing as much. Right. So I'm saying this really just as to, like, remind myself that I don't want to do this thing where, like, I really like this filmmaker, I really like his team, I really like all these things people do, and so every time I don't like something, it must be something that wasn't their decision. Now that could be true, but we will not possibly know that for every single moment throughout this show.
Yeah.
I think all that to be said, I think I agree with you on this first episode, where I really, once I dove into it, I think there is a whole lot to like here. I think this is a very good pilot episode that has to do a lot of plot work to get Ilonka to Brightcliffe and to really start to kick off what the structure of this thing is going to be. And I think it does that pretty well. I don't have many complaints about this episode itself.
Yeah, I agree. I felt invested in Ilonka as a character, and quite quickly actually felt involved with all the side characters. I mean, it's funny because you can look at this list of characters that you have put in our scripts, and you can say, that's a lot of characters. In fact, this might have been one of the thoughts or even statements that I made when you told me last week that there were, like, far more characters. I was like, it's going to get confusing and messy. And we're one episode in, and I already disagree with my past self because they're, like, all the actors are great, all the characters are very specific and strong, and the dialogue. I know we're kind of, like, jumping into the show, I get, but, like, the dialogue and the repartee is very quick and sharp, and it's not when I say quick and sharp, I don't want that to come off as, like, quippy and like cool. It's like, no, it's just like, yep, that's what that character would say, and that's what that character would say. Like, it's very precise, and it underlines character and communicates information. Like, every line is double duty. Both the actual Midnight Club meeting and the prior scene in the cafeteria, I guess, or the dining room, I guess.
I believe it's called the conservatory, Matt.
Is it?
Yeah, that's what Spence says. It says dinner will be in the conservatory later.
Okay. In the conservatory. Those are great. Those are, I think, my favorite two distinct scenes in the show. So I figured I'd just mention them. Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. Let's get into the episode. Let's talk about it. So, Midnight Club episode 1, titled The Final Chapter. I like that. I like that as a name of the episode. Written for TV by Mike Flanagan and Leah Fong. I'm saying Leah. Do you think it's Leah or Leah? I should have looked this up.
I don't know.
It was directed by Mike Flanagan. It was edited by Mike Flanagan and Brian Jeremiah Smith. That's a familiar name for us. He's helped Mike Flanagan on the editing duties on some past projects. And the director of photography here is James Neist. He was a DP on Bly Manor. Michael Fimagnari, I believe, directs a couple episodes in the show, Matt. So he and I think he DPs the episodes that he directs, but he did not on this one. And you know right away that this is not a Fimagnari episode because there is no 90-degree camera turn in this episode. So you know it can't be. It can't be.
Yeah.
So yeah, where do you want to begin? Because I think maybe the prologue, as we'll call it, may be the perfect place for us to begin here today.
Sure.
Because I really appreciated. So this is a show. I think overall we can say structurally, because we have knowledge from this episode and also from the book. This is a show that the basic structural conceit of the show will be these group of kids get together and they tell each other scary stories, right? It is Are You Afraid of the Dark-esque, in which each episode will feature at least one, possibly more than one, of the Midnight Club stories to themselves. And I believe I said this to you last week. Some of these stories you might recognize from the novel, but some of these stories are also just going to be taken from other Christopher Pike stories. And that's kind of how Flanagan and his team are getting the mix to all the other Christopher Pike stories into this thing. Is like, sometimes the story will just be Road to Nowhere, which is a Christopher Pike novel, and that's an episode of the show later, and so they will tell that story in the show. So I think it's this really cool conceit. Like, I just, putting aside the sadness of children dying, like, the show affords the creators an opportunity to do, like, constantly do new things, right? Like from a storytelling perspective, but from like a style perspective, like each one of these stories within the story has a different lighting scheme to it. It has a different style. It has a different editing style. It has a different cinematic style. And they get to do that kind of constantly throughout the show. This is something they always get to do, to the point where, like, every episode is going to be a little bit different. You're going to have different sets because there's just a different story that's in a different place. And like, I can understand why, when you sit down and really start to try to break this thing and figure out how you put together, why it becomes so exciting to do, because that sounds really cool. And the reason I'm bringing this up now is because I do think it's really interesting how the introduction section, where we meet Ilanka and we see Ilanka as just a kid who's about to graduate from high school and begin the next phase of her life. And for the first 10 minutes of the show, that is just kind of played perfectly, absolutely straight, in that it almost looks like a sequence from a completely different TV show than what the Midnight Club eventually turns into. And I was really into that.
Yeah. I we talked a little bit about the intro, the Midnight Club title card,
Mm-hmm.
and the very, 80s, 90s style. And it did feel like a different show. It felt like a less serious, show, sort of just following this kid in her life, in the mundanity of her life. Yeah. Not really tipping its hand particularly. I mean, I say that, but like, the first shot is like what looks like blood pouring into water, and then you realize it's just the hair dye, which is a wonderful little touch of foreboding, right?
Sure.
But yeah, I think it's super important. I think this is one question I'll just say is on my mind. One of these things that that I don't know is, like, what is the split going to be in terms of the vignettes? The stories within a story versus the framing story. In each episode, on average, is it going to be 50-50? Is it going to be 90-10?
Yeah.
Like, in other words, how much per episode is the backstory versus the framing story? Because the funny thing is, after one episode, I'm very invested in the framing story, and I'm very invested in these kids, and some of them more than others, because some of them haven't really done or said much, but they're all strongly characterized, and you've successfully planted the seed with all of them. So
yeah, I am confident and comfortable enough right now to tell you that this is not an anthology television show. That the wrapper, the framing story, as you said, is pretty pivotal to what the show is doing. And I think a perfect comparison point for what I mean is the book, right? Like the book, a vast majority of the page count in the book was the stories that the Midnight Club are telling each other. Mm-hmm. However, those stories matter in the context of the book because they're informing us of what the characters believe, what the characters are going through, and this stuff. So yes, the stories have on their own get to be like mini short story, mini like movies, shorts, that are perhaps fun experiences on their own. But I think that wrapper, that framing story, as you said, is the core of what the Midnight Club is, just like it was the core of what the novel is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
There's definitely more characters, so there's going to be more stories, is one of my assumptions.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Speaking of that hair and that blood at the very beginning, I really, the thing I love about this first scene, this very first scene where we're with Alanka in her room. First of all, what I love is the music, because in the course of like 3 minutes, we have Connected by the Stereo MCs, we have the Stone Temple Pilots, and then Insane in the Membrane within like 6 minutes. And I'm like, we are the people of a certain age, Matt, where it's like, this is like right. Like when Flanagan did Bly Manor and cut back to all the lot of 80s music when we were doing 80s flashbacks, like I appreciated that music as a person who technically wasn't old enough to be listening to that music at the time, but has grown to appreciate it looking back. This stuff is just me. Like this, I remember listening to these songs. I mean, even like the as the credits roll in the end of this episode, it's Flagpole Sitta, and it's just like, it's like, oh gosh, this music is speaking to me very specifically.
Yeah. So
that is really great. But the entire opening section is Alanka talking about change, talking about transition. This is a lot of what this episode is framed as. Is this girl is about to graduate from college, and so she's about to start the rest of her life. And instead, what we do is this dramatic shift to not change from one phase of life to another, from high school to college, from youth, childhood to adulthood. It is a change from life to death. It is this dramatic thing. And her hair is such a wonderful symbol of that, because like in the first seconds of the story, she is dyeing her hair as an expression of her desire to reinvent herself. That high school is over, high school is ending. I get to be whoever I want to be for the rest of my life now, and I'm going to express that fact through this visual red flare that I'm going to throw in my hair. And of course, the irony of that ends up ultimately being that the scene we see after that is of her completely bald, because all that's gone. That's all gone now. And I just think like it's one of those things that pays off later. You don't even recognize it in the moment. It's just an easy symbol of like, ooh, she's being a little rebellious now because she's finally done with high school and can like finally go to a party for the first time and do it. And that's fun. And it plays as just like a typical like high school. I mean, like there's 100 movies about the high schoolers on like the last day of being a high schooler finally wanting to be like, I want to do something reckless. We skip the parties. Now it's time to do it. There's so many stories about that. And the beginning of this episode is playing right down the middle of those type of stories.
Yeah. I will say there's a lot of really clever, subtle choices that structurally draw your attention to the tragedy of this, because we emphasize that she's a salutatorian. Mm-hmm. So she's worked very, very hard. Our attention is drawn to this in a few different ways. Even when she's at this party, she's not really drinking. Yeah. She's sort of there with her friend, right? Her friend is having a fun time. And then she gets chatted up by this boy. And, you know, after having watched the whole episode, I think the idea there is like, oh, she's realizing for the first time kind of like what her life is going to be like in college, because she's not even there yet. And this guy is obviously super attracted to her intellectually and physically. And, you know, maybe she's imagining meeting this guy specifically. Probably not, because I think she's going to a totally different college. But the point is, like, she's starting to live the dream, or she's at least getting closer to that edge of transition.
Yeah.
And like right at the edge, she is denied entry.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, it's distinctly not like, yeah, she goes and it's a wild party, woo. It's not a wild party, and she doesn't get to make that transition.
Yeah.
And all of her life up until now was like in preparation for this thing that she's now not gonna get to do.
Yeah.
Which emphasizes the tragedy and like it's just an easy, quick way of making us relate to her and feel that feeling of being cheated out of something.
No, for sure. And like, there's some interesting stuff going on here with that, because like in this, the first time we meet her, she's in her room practicing her salutatorian speech. And in that salutatorian speech, she's quoting the Breakfast Club, right? She's saying like the brain, the jock, that like it's like one of the most bog standard like graduation speeches you could ever have. And my initial reaction when I first watched that was to be like, oh, this kind of sucks, doesn't it? It's like this is just such a standard, like there's nothing actually creative here. And I was like, oh, maybe that's like the point though, that this is like, it's supposed to be this, like I said, this right down the middle standard, I'm about to graduate, move on to the next phase of my life thing. Even the conversation that you're just mentioning, like my first gut reaction was like, really? Like, you're just talking up at this guy about Mary Shelley, about Frankenstein? Like, I think it's very easy to like look down on this character a little bit. And like when she says Shelley, not the husband, Mary, not the husband, as if you were like, I understand that her husband was a pretty well-regarded poet, but like, come on. Obviously you're talking about Mary Shelley, obviously. But like, I think it's important to remember that she's a 17-year-old girl that is just like so excited about her life and everything her life is going to do. And she has this probably freshly, relatively newfound love of literature. And you remember what it's like to be young when you just love something, right? It's just like, it's all consuming. It's all powerful. It's all you can think about. It's all you can talk about. It overwhelms you. And so like, it does for me, a grouchy 40-year-old man come off as like, you're being a little silly there, Alonka. But I think on retrospect, it is supposed to be just this very stereotypical, feels cruel, but like very standard, immediately relatable, like girl on the cusp of the rest of her life.
Yeah. I mean, I think it just felt realistic, right? Where there's like a lack of self-awareness, and that's not really meant as a criticism. It's just a fact about young people.
Yeah. Like, I think every young person thinks that they're the first person who's ever had feelings about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Yeah, right. Right. And that's great, right? Like, if anything, we want that, right? Like if you were actually talking to this person in real life, you wouldn't be rolling your eyes. You'd be like, "This is beautiful. It's beautiful that you feel this way." It's because it's like a fictional character that we're like, okay, you're portraying this character in a certain way for us.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, she is. I think one way of rephrasing what you're saying here is like, she is being put forth to us as a naive kid, which is what she is, because she is a kid who is just like blithely moving forward into her life, expecting it to be completely normal and go according to plan, which we all do, right? We all assume that our lives are going to go according to our plan, and then it's, you know, she's suddenly jarringly, painfully wrenched off of that path, and we have enough buy-in with her character that it actually sucks, right? Like, I think we talked. This is one of the things I really appreciated about the book, the fact that it really nails this very, you know, it shoots this gap between, on the one side, being incredibly manipulative and maudlin, and just and then you roll your eyes because you're like, okay, if you use every trick in the book, then yeah, you can make me sad, but then I don't feel I lose my sense of connection to the material because it doesn't feel real anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other side, you kind of don't go far enough, and it just feels sort of inert and maybe tropey and like like we were talking about with genre, where it's like there's pros and cons to genre. One of the cons of genre is it's not real, and so you can only connect so deep. You can connect pretty deep, but I think there's a limit. But the book shot the gap where it was like, yeah, it's super sad. It connects to me, but it doesn't overdo it. And so far, that's how I feel about the show. I feel like that was a recognized element of the book that was brought to the show.
Cool. No, I like that. That's good to hear. And I think I agree with you for sure. And I agree with the drama of the event itself, right? So she does our very typical like sudden coughing fit, ending in blood in the hand. And then we cut to her. Well, first we cut to her in the bathroom washing her hands, and then spooky mirror ghost jump scare. Ah. So we have. So let's talk about these outside of the story within a story, because we have to talk about that story separately. But like we have several moments throughout this episode where Alanka is seeing an old man and an old woman, and played for dramatic scares. This is also the moment every time she passes out and also sees images of Brightcliffe and of Kevin sitting on the bench and of everyone either gathered around or dead around the same table that they tell stories to each other at. So, I mean, we're doing a thing similar to like we did in Midnight Mass with Riley and his kind of visions of things that he didn't fully understand, or dreams or whatever. But we don't really know what to make of it in this show. I think just like we didn't in that show either.
Yeah. Well, I also feel like I might be missing some detail here, but I felt like pretty much every instance where she sees anything supernatural is kind of sandwiched with her having some kind of fainting spell. And so that leaves us with the leeway to say, well, maybe she's just having some kind of seizure as a consequence of her illness or her medication, and she's not actually seeing a ghost, but she's convincing herself that she is, right? Because she kind of wants there to be something supernatural going on.
Yeah, I think the show pays lip service to that too. The idea of like, we're on a lot of medication. It messes with your brain. It messes with your ability to sense things, and that kind of stuff can happen. I think that's true. I do think, perhaps independent of that, perhaps not, there is also the general sense of deja vu she gets around Kevin and around Brightcliffe, that could or could not be related. That could be supernatural. That could, we don't know. We don't know, right? I mean, going off of what we know about the character of Alanka and Kevin from the book, it could be something related to their past life stuff, right? That was a big heavy influence part of the book. We don't know if the show is taking that tactic or not with this. We don't know, but could be.
Yeah, I didn't detect any explicit mention of the past life stuff. Mm-hmm. Like she doesn't, but that's okay.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Well, I mean, maybe this is the place to talk about it, because I think one of the big changes from the book is the origin of the Midnight Club, where in the book we have these 5 characters and they created the Midnight Club together. Alanka was actually the one who created it. She had the idea. She's the one that came up with that. In this story, Alanka is the newbie at Brightcliffe. The Midnight Club, we learn, has been going on for before anyone else had gotten there. Like, they've just kind of come piecemeal to this place, are inducted into the club, and then, people unfortunately die. And so there's just kind of a thing that's been passed down, a tradition that's been passed down from person to person to person. So we don't even know when it started, including the whole pact about the responsibility of someone to do something after they die, right? That is also another thing that's passed down, whereas in Pike's book was just a thing that these 5 kids got together and did. No, this is part of a legacy of this place and the people in this place. I gotta say, I like Flanagan's version better. First of all, I think Alanka being the new person in the house is a much better setup for a longer story, right? I understand in Pike's story you have 200 pages, you don't have a lot of leeway, but in a longer story, having your protagonist be the new person that everything can be explained to along with the audience is just a clever solution for how to set up and tell that story.
Agree completely. It also introduces the ability to talk about like why are all these kids at a hospice and not with their families,
right? Which is what Tim says. Yeah,
right. And it's like it's the sort of question that I don't think even actively occurred to my brain when we were talking about the book, but you do need you need there to be a reason why she leaves her stepdad, right? And even in this case, by the way, it's her stepdad, not her.
Well,
not either of her biological parents.
It's her foster dad, so not even her stepdad.
I thought it was okay. I for some reason I thought she said stepdad. Okay,
no, it's foster. Her foster father is Tim, and I believe Maggie, who is mentioned a couple times, is her foster mother. So she's an orphan, and these are her foster parents.
Gotcha.
Which is, and it seems like Maggie. I don't think we know how Maggie died, but she has passed away. So I think that's an interesting choice. I think it is part of what you're saying is we're setting up a situation in which it makes sense why a person would choose to go here instead of be with their family. But it's like, it's not like we created a situation in which Alanka has never experienced like loss or pain or trauma around death in her life up until she gets diagnosed with cancer. Cause I think that would be a little different, right? Like if she had this like perfect, like this, we're talking about this being like a straight down the middle teen coming of age story that takes place the weekend of graduation. Like it might make sense to lean into that even harder and have like a very stereotypical, like, you know, I mean, let's just white middle class, like never really experienced any hardship, just was like a straight arrow, didn't really do anything wrong. And then use that as your jumping off point of all these things that happen. But that's not what this show does. Like, she is an orphan. We don't know what happened to her parents. We might never know. I don't know. But we do know that her foster mother passed away. There's a point where we see her in like a head wrap that makes me think, gosh, maybe that was cancer. Maybe she lost her foster mother to cancer, and then got cancer herself. And that is a much different dynamic as well. That informs the character's reaction to this kind of stuff in a way that's never specifically talked about in the show, but definitely occurred to me while I was watching it.
Yeah, it may eventually do so. Like I do. One of the things that I liked about the book, I'm going to keep mentioning the book, obviously, is that like, yeah, she has this really tragically delusional sense that she's going to get better in the book. And we've already planted that seed here. And it's less about the idea that she's like, eating all natural foods and taking supplements, and more directly connected to the plot, where, I mean, we find this out at the end, obviously, but we learn through her story that she believes, or she knows of this story of someone who came to the house before and wandered off one day, and then a week later came back and their cancer was totally in remission, and some magical thing saved them.
Yeah.
And so that's actually why she's here, which is very different from, so it's interesting because that's very different from the book. But it blends in this idea from the book that Ilanka, unlike the others, believes that she's going to get better.
Yeah.
And I bring this up riffing on what you just said about her parents being dead, because I think the fact that she has more experience with death than these other kids might play into that reality, into her perspective about death. And
sure,
she's going to have a lot of growing to do over the course of these episodes.
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, I think you're so right. And I think it's the perfect beat to end the episode on is this beat of like Kevin cornering her and being like, that story you told, like, it wasn't all made up, right? Because I am observant, and the name you used I've seen on this picture. And she goes and tells her story, and I think this is a very interestingly hard thing to do in this episode, because we do have this episode that has, over the course of it, established several supernatural things, or potentially supernatural things, right? We have these ghost people that Alanka keeps seeing. We also have this ominous shadow that we see at the very, very end of the episode, right? Looks kind of deathish. Maybe that's supposed to represent death. Like, we have characters talking about how they're being followed by this shadowy thing, right? We have Alanka's feeling of recognizing Kevin, and Kevin has the same feeling of her. And then we also have Julia Jane and the story of magic remission, right? And so these are like supernatural elements that have been potentially, and I say potentially because I take your point that this all could just be so much more to this place than you not actually happening that way, right? But we introduce these potentially supernatural things in this episode, and then we have a character at the very end of the episode like confidently state to Kevin, I'm going to live. And I think there's perhaps a word, like, I think the beat that the show wants to hit in this moment is you, the audience, going, oh, Alanka, really? And I think it's actually more difficult to do that because we've had the supernatural stuff introduced, right? This idea that maybe this place is actually magic. Maybe there is actually a magic cure that's going to happen here. But I think through Kevin and the performance of the actor who plays Kevin, Igby Rigney, who is Warren from Midnight Mass, he's back. And the way he responds to her is this way of like kind of heartbroken, like, oh, you're still at that phase of you haven't accepted. Like, we have the Dr. Stanton give this kind of beautiful the language of battle monologue about how we talk about cancer and about how we fight and lose the fight and we make it into a battle, and then we say people lost the battle, and it's this beautiful thing about like, that's not what this place is about. What this place is about is recognizing that it's okay when you've reached the end. It's okay to leave the battlefield. It's okay to let go. It's okay. And that is not what Alanka is doing, like, at all, all. And so it's this beautiful thing that I think Tim is processing, and like, it looks at the time like Alanka's processing and understanding, but she is not operating on that level at all. And that's a really fun dynamic to bring to a story about children having to deal with the fact that they're dying.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it is sort of played as a last minute twist, a stinger almost on this episode, where you believe like, wow, she's taking this better than I would. She's this incredibly mature young lady. And then you realize like, no, it's because she believes there's a magic way out. And that's why she's come to this hospice. Mm-hmm. It's not because she wanted like a community of other young people to live the rest of her days with. It's because she expects there to be magic.
Yeah.
And that's what you said a second ago about like how we're supposed to react to that. I definitely reacted, I think, the way Kevin reacts, but partially that could be because we just read the book and I know, I don't know how the show ends, but in the book she's wrong about getting cured. So,
but again, it is the actual final moment of the episode is not that moment. It is they walk off and then we see a shadowy ghost ghouly figure, or at least the shadow of one in the background. Yeah. So I think the show is leaving it open for like, what we said, maybe there is some special, powerful, magical thing about this place.
Yeah. That's true. Although I think if I just use my trope dot connector, I'm like maybe there is something special and magical about this place, but the point of it is not to reverse people's cancer. The point of it is to help them find peace.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
I think it is a fair thing to look at this story right now, and the entire concept of the story is a story of 8 kids who are going through a thing that they should never have to go through, right? Like this is a, we talked in Midnight Mass so much about God and about the idea of why do bad things happen to good people, right? And the idea of free will, when we talked a little about that a couple weeks ago, and it's like nobody's free will gave a child cancer, right? Like that, like this is just a cruel twist of fate or an uncaring universe or whatever you want to call it, right? It is cruel. It is monstrous. It is terrible. It is a thing that a child should never, ever, ever have to go through, right? And it would be a little bit weird if you tell a story where that is your frame and then you say, but don't worry, she's going to get magically cured at the end of it, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything, but like that would be a choice for sure.
Yeah, especially if you start it the way you start this, right?
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure we can think of some example of a show or movie or story that has existed that's about like looking for a magical cure, right? It's a trope that exists, but when you make your show so grounded, it's like, I mean, it's exactly the same. We spoil everything that happens in our previous things we've discussed, right? So I can talk about Midnight Mass. So like it's just the same as the Midnight Mass moment when Sheriff Hassan is talking to his son and saying, God doesn't do miracles like this. God isn't magic, because if God was magic, then why did he help that girl walk and he let my wife die horribly? Mm-hmm. And that's a question that just like blows up this entire consideration if you're thinking about it seriously, right?
Yeah.
Of course, that's talking about God, not magic, right?
Sure.
But meaningfully different. But
meaningfully different, like in real life, but like in the world of storytelling, it is making a point and chasing a theme and trying to explore and say something about part of the human experience. And yeah, it just, again, no spoilers, but come on. We read the book. We read the book, right? Like we read the book. Like just like I'm just imagining, and maybe this is what we're talking about when we talk about the Netflix influence, but like I'm imagining someone picking up this book and be like, great story, but could we make all the children not die at the end? Because I think that would be like happier. And then the response to that would be like, but that's the book. That's what the book is about. That's all the book is about. So yeah. Interesting ideas. I look forward to really exploring this as we go through the story. But yeah, I think it behooves us to be honest and upfront about some of the stuff, right? Like I think it's safe to say that if there is magic here, it is not going to be quite the way Alanka thinks it is.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with. Yeah,
but I do wonder, and in my quest of like figuring out of like why this wasn't as well received, why didn't maybe I like it as much? I do wonder if introducing the magic element does kind of make the water a little bit more murky as you move through the story, right? Like we just said, I think we're on Kevin's side when he clearly reacts to this final end of episode reveal of Alanka's, but this is a show, and we haven't actually said this, but I just think this is true, Matt. This is a show that is meant for the same age group of people that would have been reading the Christopher Pike book. Like that's what it feels designed to me as. And that's not to say that adults can't get enjoyment out of it. Certainly we are and will. But I think that is what they're shooting for. They're shooting for a tone and type of show that is hitting that same band of childhood that would have in the 90s read this same story. And
that feels right to me. Yeah.
And all that to be said is like you confuse the issue maybe a little bit when you muck and make the waters a little bit murky around these concepts and ideas.
I mean, so I think you're 100% right.
There's an agreement.
But I have to say that I felt the same way about the book, because
Sure, fair.
the book, part of that being the fault of the marketing, but not all of it, because the book itself introduces this idea of like the oath of the Midnight Club is that we're going to the first of us that's going to die is going to try to send some sign about the afterlife, and which is an idea that is immediately introduced in the show, by which I mean in the first episode at some point. And then that is a thing that comes into play later in the book, but in such a minor way. This is why I like the book, right? It comes into play, but you think it's going to come into play in some kind of like creepy or eerie fashion,
yeah,
or like in a huge revelation moment, and it's really just this almost meaningless. Well, okay, so like it's narratively meaningless, but spiritually and character-wise incredibly meaningful gesture of just like she found peace, and healing is possible, and it's not, there's no clarity to it, there's just a feeling of like, oh, things can be mended in this life, and it's ambiguous, it's beautifully subtle, and I love that about the book. So I hope that we can keep the subtlety, and we already are not, so I kind of know what direction things are going there, but
yes and no.
Well, I shouldn't. Yeah.
I think you're totally right that especially reading the back of the book makes it seem like the pact itself is going to be the driving force, essentially the inciting incident of the story, right? That like these kids make this pact, then one of them dies, and then they do make contact from beyond, and that's the story, and that's not the story. And I mean, we'll see in the show. We don't know definitively one way or another. But yeah. So Alanka gets on a computer and finds Brightcliffe and has another pass out session. I want to point out, it's interesting, when she wakes up from passing out, the Julia Jane story is just on the computer. Like, we don't see her like click that link and pull it up. That's weird, isn't it? That's a little weird.
Magic.
Yeah. But what I really love about the actual getting to Brightcliffe and the way she reacts with Tim, we are constantly throughout this episode doing this thing, and the whole structure of it is built around this idea that this girl was about to graduate from college or high school and go to college, and it's this for a parent and child relationship, and for a young person moving into adulthood thing. It is this all important moment of transition in your life. It is a moment in which your life is going to transition and change in ways you can't even fully comprehend yet. And we are playing and hitting the exact same beats with her moving off to Brightcliffe. I mean, the show just like lampshades this directly, right? It just tells us. It's like Tim is like sitting there saying, "I'm supposed to be dropping you off in a dorm, not here." But like we're playing all these familiar beats. Like this is her version of going to college. And it's a tragic, horrifying version, but we're still playing these beats in a very interesting way. She has graduated from high school, and now she is in college, only college happens to be this hospice.
That's a great point. That's so funny because I never like actually verbally articulated that, but as she's meeting all of these other kids, it is played like, oh, she's going through the dorm and she's meeting all the other kids on the dorm hall.
Yeah.
It's that scene, but it's like, no, this is a hospice. These are all the other kids who are here to die.
Yeah. It's also like Breakfast Club. Like we specifically referenced Breakfast Club in her speech at the beginning of the episode, but it's also like, the jock, the nerd, the like it's all there too, in a fun way.
Yeah.
But it does feel very like it's supposed to be college, and this is our dorm. The one guy's, she's one girl's sitting there playing her cello in her dorm room, another one's playing on the pinball. Like some people are doing yoga in the quad. Like it is hitting those beats very specifically, and it's hitting those beats with this pall over all of it, and it's really effective in that. It's like, I think one thing that the show really wants to do is that this is the shroud of death is hanging right over these kids' heads, but also they're kids, And I mean, we talked about this a little bit with the book too. Like we talked about it with their horniness in the book. They're still kids, and you can't think about the fact that you're going to die all the time. You're also like trying to experience your life and having experiences, and so like it definitely wants to be this tone in the show that like this thing is hanging over everyone and everything, and it's not that they're not constantly thinking about it, but it's also like they also have to just keep like living their lives. And so there's interactions, there's jokes, there's just kids. I think like a younger version of me, if I had like seen this show when I was 8, 9, 10, I would have been like, I don't understand why they're like joking around, why they're not just sad all the time. I don't get that. Like this is the same version of me that when I went to my grandmother's funeral, just could not understand how people were like chatting and joking around with each other. Like my brain just could not comprehend. Someone died. We have to be sad 100% of the time. That's all we can be right now is completely unadulterated sad. And that's not how people are. That's not how life works, right? And I think the show manages to capture this very delicate thing, at least in this first episode, of all these people have no illusions about their imminent death, except for maybe Alanka. But they are also just like people.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Like I was thinking about what you're talking about right now during the dinner scene.
Yes.
Where they are just chatting, and it was great. I thought it was really great because yes, they're just chatting, but then like weaving throughout what could just be a conversation between average normal people, like well people, is this thread of morbid humor, or references to death, references to sickness, and it's all treated so matter of factly. I really thought that struck me as being very realistic.
Yeah.
Where like when you have an illness, you're not like the illness. It's just like, yeah, I live with it. You can get used to almost anything, right? And used to it doesn't mean you like it or welcome it, but you're not.
This is a hospice.
It just can't. It can't be this dread-laden burden all of the time.
Yeah.
Even if maybe it is full of dread, in the late hours of the night or whatever. But like when you're just hanging out with all your other friends and they all have the same burden as you, then what's the point of being morbid about it, other than to joke about it, right? So that was all perfect to me.
I agree. I do think that's like the first time the episode really started singing for me is we get all 8 kids in the same room and watch as they ping off each other. And it's really fun to see. I think all these kids do a really fantastic job of really feeling like these are established relationships, that these people know each other and they're used to like giving each other shit in some ways. And what you said about like some people, like I think everyone has a different stage of like acceptance with this kind of thing that's hanging over them all. And so there are some people that are much more macabre and are able to joke about it. But there are other characters that are maybe not quite there yet, right? We see the character of Sandra is the one that really pushes back when Anya goes really hard into her, complaining about her old roommate Rachel and the Wicca stuff she was doing, and her last moments of talking to her. Sandra was like, "This is hard enough already, and you're making it worse." Whereas other people just like shake it off, right?
Scary enough without that.
We haven't talked about any of these actors yet, but I want to talk about Ruth Codd a little. Maybe this is a great example to talk about Ruth Codd a little bit here, who plays Anya.
Sure.
I don't know if you know about her. She was a hairstylist and then lost her job during the pandemic, started making TikToks, became in the middle of the pandemic, like became a very famous, like 500,000 followers. I think that what I read said like 20 million views, like very well regarded TikToker who just was at first just talking about the experience of the pandemic. And of course she's an amputee, her leg being chopped off. That's real. She apparently was in a soccer incident at 15 and like really hurt her foot. And then like it never fully recovered and was like always hurt. And so at 23, like the easiest thing to do just became to chop off the leg. And I believe since then, like last year, she had to amputate her other leg because of problems with the way she was walking from the injury from the first leg. It's like, it's awful. but
Jeez.
she was not a professional actress, Matt. She was literally a TikToker. This is her first acting role ever. Basically, the casting, we talk about the skill of people on the casting team and casting directors. They found her and thought she would be perfect for this role. And I think she's magnificent. I mean, I love her. And I love the little bit about when she's telling the story about her old roommate, Rachel, and then she died. And she just like puts the green bean in her mouth and chews. Like it's this perfect mix of like macabre and indifferent, but with this thing that we know because we read the book that's lying under Anya. Man, I love her performance so much.
I did too. Actually, I'm glad you jumped straight to this because she was the main one I wanted to talk about. Partly because she's one of the more memorable characters in the book, but also because it's one of the more memorable performances. And I agree. Like it was interesting because the Anya in the book was, a very sort of prickly, hard to love character at first, and then you understand what's going on with her, and then you like her more. And I like this performance because it's not exactly the same character that's on the page, but it's like a fun rotation of that idea.
Sure.
It's she is prickly.
Yeah.
She is kind of standoffish, but not in the expected way, I think is what I was thinking. Like while watching it, I was like, this is just a much fresher take on this, what is basically a trope of a character where it's like, oh, your roommate is actually not that easy to get along with.
Yeah, it's your college roommate, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it was in a way that felt, again, very fresh and original. And a lot of that has to come down to the performance because there's all these little acting choices that are conveying the prickliness, like you said, the feigned indifference of a little hand gesture.
Yeah,
it's great.
It is, and it's the type of thing. Ilanka and Kevin have the conversation about what Ilanka is really doing here, and Kevin's reaction is just like sympathy at her naivete. You can imagine that same conversation between Ilanka and Anya, and it would go completely different because Anya would just say, "Are you stupid? Like what's wrong with you? Are you dumb? You're dying." Like Ilanka, we learn is the longest tenured person here, which by the way, I had a moment where they all listed how long they've been there. And it's a moment of like true like horror at like, you have these people, like whenever you have a new character going into a new situation, you just kind of have this thing of like, with the exception of the one that they specifically mention as the new kid, everyone's like a veteran of this place. But veteran of this place means 6 months. 6 months. And it's because it's a hospice. They're all dying. And they're not like, it's not designed for them to be around very longer. And the idea of like the reason there's an opening is because someone else has died. But like, the part I really liked in a great like character introduction moment of Anya is she comes in the room, she sees all of Ilanka's books stacked in the corner, and she's like, "You gonna read all those?" And she goes, "Yeah, I was supposed to be in college this fall, so I'm just trying to keep up with my syllabus," which is like an absurd thing to say if you're a person in a hospice, right? Like, and it's because Ilanka has this real genuine, like, I think that's the first hint in the story that Ilanka doesn't think she's gonna die. And Anya's reaction to it is just like, Christ, right? She's just like, oh my God. And that's a perfect way of introducing like the type of person she is, where she just like, she's in incredible pain. She's taking morphine, 10 grams of morphine. Maybe it's milligrams, probably not 10 grams. I feel like that'd be a lot of morphine.
I don't know
morphine. She's clearly in constant pain. She's taking a lot of drugs, and she kind of has no more delusions about where all this is going for her. And the new kid, the shiny new kid who goes into the room and brings a big stack of books so she doesn't fall behind on her college classes, is absurd to her and ridiculous. And she is a very guarded person. I think she is a very prickly person, and she is, I think, very protective of the people she does care about. And that is not Ilanka, at least in this episode. Yeah.
Although I think that's one of the fun things in the final movement of this episode is that by showing up at the Midnight Club and then telling a story that gets everyone's attention and then stopping and being like, this is just the first night. she really successfully, I think, wins over a lot of the characters, and in particular Anya, I think.
Totally. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the other characters, because we do have our core 5 from the novel. That is Alanka, Kevin, Anya, Sandra, and Spence. They're all here, but we also have 3 new additions, as we talked about. We have Cherie, we have Natsuki, and we have Amesh. Which one do you want to talk about first?
Cherie.
All right. Who is she?
I basically chose randomly because I have a really hard time remembering any of the characters who were not the ones in the book that I recognize, to be honest.
Well, Cherie is the pathological liar that plays the cello, if you want a quick summary.
Yeah. So I was, you got to help me sort this out, okay? Because there was the one character in the book is the one who actually does, it turns out she was misdiagnosed and she ends up going home.
Yeah, in the book that is Sandra.
Okay.
Who in the show is played by Anara Simone, Lisa from Midnight Mass.
Okay.
She's the one with the bad wig in the show.
Okay.
Yeah. But
okay.
I think maybe the reason why you're confused is because the show gives Sandra's never tells a story beat to Cherie. Cherie,
yes,
in the show is the one that has been here but has never yet told a story. So maybe that's where that's confusion lies.
100% where the confusion came from, that she has never told the story, and that this metaphysically means that she's not really part of the Midnight Club and not actually going to die. Yeah, I mean, she's fun because the whole thing where she just is constantly saying obvious lies. It's fun, but it's also a little unnerving because it's like, you can't behave this way all the time.
Yeah.
Like you can't never let anyone know anything about you. That's just, that's actually just inhuman.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So it makes you really kind of curious about her, and I am curious about her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love her moment in the dinner scene when they're talking about it and she goes, "This is a hospice? My dad told me it was a boarding school."
It's great.
It's just like,
it's great.
By the way, another actor who had never acted before, a woman named Adia, I think is her name.
Okay.
Cool. First time actor. Same. We said Ruth Codd already. The Natsuki character, Aya Furukawa, I think this was her first acting role as well. So
cool.
This is really cool. I mean, like, we've always talked about how Flanagan and all these, we're calling them kids, and we're saying it in the way of like they're adults technically, but they're young, and we're old now, so we get to call young adults kids. Like you're putting a lot on these people, on these performances, right? It's all resting on these characters, and the fact that you're hiring so many that don't have a lot of experience is like, again, we talk about trust a lot with Flanagan, and trust between Flanagan and his crew, and Flanagan and his cast, and it's putting a lot of trust in these actors that, like, no, I think you can do this. And so far, episode 1, I think everyone is great. There's one line in this whole show that I was like, oh, I don't think the acting is good there. And that one line is when Alanka first gets to Brightcliffe, and Mark comes out. Zach Gilford. Riley is back once again.
Yeah.
He is the nurse practitioner in this hospice.
Who I just did not recognize, with no hair and with a cheerful disposition.
That's really funny. He says, "You're Alanka, right?" And she says, "Alanka, Yeppers." Right? Yeppers. And I just don't think it's a great line read of Yeppers. And my theory here is that I don't think Amon Benson, who plays Alanka, really liked saying the word Yeppers. My theory is she just didn't enjoy that line. And that's why maybe it fell a little flat for me.
That's great. I can't say I noticed that. So just to talk about acting for 1 second, since this is something I wanted to mention anyway, I just really didn't like the doctor who diagnoses her. And the first way I wanted to say that was like, I didn't like her performance. And then I thought about it and I was like, no, it's not that like the performance was of poor quality. It's that I don't like the character. So like I dislike this doctor. Mm-hmm. And then I was trying to reflect on why. And it's like, well, she just has such a cold, like, kind of like bitter and almost dismissive and like argumentative way of talking with everyone, really. Like we only ever, part of it is we only ever see her delivering bad news, but it's like she has this like pinched,
There are a lot of steps between here and
like
Kyoto.
closed expression, and
It's not really that simple.
it's almost like she's expecting you to
Two in a class of 900.
like argue with her, and she's already like decided she's not gonna brook any nonsense. I don't know. There was something about the performance made me like feel very antagonistic toward this doctor character who we're never gonna see again, I'm sure. But I was just like, what an interesting way of playing that character is I guess what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, like, you're a person whose job is responsible for telling children they're going to die of cancer, so it's a tough beat. So maybe I'm a little sympathetic to her in that, and maybe part of that is just she's kind of closed herself off emotionally from it. I do have some notes for her.
Make a difference at this point.
So you're
Gonna
saying-
tell a dad that his daughter is
You're
dying.
saying she's terminal.
Maybe don't do that in the hallway.
Yes.
Maybe we can just. I understand that, like, you know, doylistically, the point of having that in the hallway is so Ilanka can overhear it. But come on, Doc, pull him into an office, sit him down, and have the conversation that your daughter is going to die. Like, come on.
I mean, I'm glad you said that, because that was one of the things that I was holding against her, and also just the way that conversation went.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, I'm no doctor, but I'm pretty sure that when you break the news to somebody, you're supposed to break the news to them and not make them drag it out of you. Which is what he had to do. I was just like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It was weird how much of a strong negative impression this character made on me. And part of it, I think, is just like, well, she's the doctor who told her that she's dying.
Yeah.
And so probably Ilanka feels negatively toward her through no fault of her own. She's just the one who did the diagnosis, right?
I really like the line where
How long?
he asks,
Tough
like,
to say.
It's tough to fucking
how long
answer,
she's going to
Doc.
last.
Give it a try.
And she says, it's hard to say. And his clapback is, well, it's pretty hard to fucking hear, Doc. I really enjoyed that. Tim, the foster father, great. Did you?
Yeah.
I have a question for you. Did you recognize him?
It took me a minute. First, my mind was trying to like snap to grid the other, like the actor who's the dad in, not the dad actually, the cop in Stranger Things. I blank on his name, just because he has kind of a similar looking face.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now, but I know who you're talking about.
I know it's not him. I immediately knew it's not him. I mean, the character's name is Hopper.
David Harbour.
David Harbour, yeah. So I knew it wasn't him, but I was like, he looks so much like David Harbour. And then I was like, no, he's okay. So the real, you're gonna laugh at me here. I was like trying to decide what Midnight Mass actor he was, and couldn't, because I kept waffling between it being Sturge and Henry Thomas with the giant beard. And I was like, no, it's not Henry Thomas. Stop seeing Henry Thomas. And then I finally realized, like, no, it's Sturge without a giant beard. It's Sturge without a giant beard. Okay.
This is Matt. I can't. I don't know if it's Beadle or Beetle. He played Sturge. He is here not looking like a fisherman, but looking like a plumber and a foster dad, or electrician. I think he's an electrician.
No, he's great. He's great.
He's really great. He's saddled with some tough stuff in this one. There's some, like, I do appreciate the show gives us time for moments between them. Like, you know, he says when she really wants to go to this hospice,
I promised Maggie
he's like,
I would
you know,
take care
I
of you.
promised Maggie I was going to take care of you. I promised my wife I was going to take care of you. And she's like, again, to relate to,
So good, Tim.
you know, this we're playing with having to let your children go when they go off to college, and having to let your children go when they go off to death. That moment where Ilanka is like, you did a good job. Like, your job is over now. Like, you have served your role. This is what you were supposed to do, and you have completed that now. And now it is my time to finish with me. Unfortunately, that's going to happen with Ilanka way faster than it should.
Yeah.
I do want to point out one thing. You know, I think we started talking about the Midnight Club group, and then we got distracted. But we do this thing where we really define characters by their illness, right? Like when Ilanka meets Kevin, the first thing he asks is, what are you in for? Before they even know each other's name, we know that he has leukemia. We know that she has thyroid cancer. And this is a trend that continues throughout most of the episode, right? When Spence is giving her a tour of Brightcliffe, every time we see a person,
Sandra,
it's
lymphoma.
We see Natsuki, she has ovarian cancer. We see Sandra, she has lymphoma. We see Amesh, she has a glioblastoma. And it becomes so like intentional that the places where we don't learn are the ones that stand out, right? And so there are three characters that we don't know what they're in for. Spence never tells Ilanka why he's here. We also don't know with Cherie, and maybe that's just because just nobody knows anything about her.
Yeah.
She doesn't say anything about her. And then of course we don't know with Anya either, because Anya's like, when we have the moment where Anya and Ilanka meet, Ilanka's like immediately like, hi, I'm Ilanka. I forget what technical name is with thyroid carcinoma with I like how she always put the lung metastasis in that part, but she does that and then Anya just doesn't answer. I mean, we know what Anya has from the book. It might not be the same thing. It might. And that's the other thing, is we also know what Spence has from the book, right? And the show doesn't come right out and say Spence is gay in this episode, but come on, right? Like, you got there, right?
I mean, I honestly don't know that I would have if I didn't read the book, but I think that the show is painting that picture for us.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think maybe if like the only one real moment of evidence we have is when he tells Mark to fuck off. when Mark just like the happy happy Riley Finn, what's he doing here? When he walks in just to deliver Ilanka's dinner and he's like, hey, no, don't go out past your curfew. The curfew's a strict curfew. You have to stay in. And he just walks off and says, fuck off, Mark. And I love the line, what's that about? And I think it's Anya who says, God, what is it she says?
Like he's a cute, athletic,
he's young and cute and
healthy,
funny, and he ain't dying.
Yeah.
What's not to hate?
Yeah.
So I mean, calling him cute, I think in relation to Spence, I think is supposed to be gesturing towards that. But I think you're probably right. If you hadn't read the book, you might not. It has not been told to us that Spence is gay. And I mean, if we're following the book exactly, that's not a thing that he tells anyone.
Right.
So
well, which is also true to life to living in the 90s, because just it was very rare, to the point of almost unheard of, for like a teenage boy to just be openly gay.
Yeah.
Like once you're older and living life on your own, that's a different thing. But high school aged, early college aged, I think it was just so prejudiced against when we were young that it just wasn't a thing.
But it's also like, if we keep with our college metaphor, this would be the place, right? This would be the place to come out. So I don't know. We'll see with that. But yeah, there is also a brief moment where I think when Amesh is doing the tour with them and Amesh is talking about some hot girl or whatever, and he's like, come on, man, why wouldn't you don't want like, and he's just like, yeah, it's all yours. I don't even know what they're talking about. But that's another little gesture.
That's a good point.
All right. Do you want to talk about any of the rest of them in detail? We get like cursory information on all these characters. We know most about the ones from the book because we're supplementing this with book information. The rest of them we're still kind of learning about. But do you want to go into the meeting of the Midnight Club itself?
Yeah, definitely. I want to. I do want to do that as sort of a transition, as an organic transition.
We're so good at this.
I kind of want to just like talk about the fact that we're once again doing a haunted house show.
Good point.
It's not The Haunting of Blank, but it is like shot in a way that feels very familiar. Like it feels more like we're moving through the halls of midnight of midnight. That's the one show that is not what I was trying to say. we're moving through the halls of either Bly or Hill House in the dark, and there's Ilanka is following someone, and there's a lot of moments in that really reminded me of like the way light and darkness are treated, and just the I don't know if it's the lens curvature or what exactly, but it makes the halls feel very like eerie and spacious in a way that felt familiar. So probably is the lens curvature actually. But anyway, I love that.
Use anamorphic. I'm not sure. I'm not a cinematographer. I barely understand what an anamorphic lens means.
It just, whatever they're doing, it makes the halls seem like big
and wide,
and the people and the people seem like small, and vulnerable, and I love that. So we transition through the haunted house, and then we get to the Midnight Club.
You're so right. I mean, like to just talk about, like, Brightcliffe is, first of all, it's called Brightcliffe Manor. Brightcliffe, it's absurd. It's an absurd place. It's like in the middle of nowhere on this beautiful cliffside, and it's this ridiculous house. It is straight out of like a Haunting of series for sure. And I think you're absolutely right that the way they shoot it is all part of that. Like it's the lenses, maybe, I think the colors as well. It's very muted. It's very imposing. Also, I want to say there are circles all over this fucker. Like there are circles everywhere in this house. I really noticed it on one of my rewatches that like the doors, even the hallways are all rounded. Like it's circles everywhere. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. Circles mean a lot of things, right? Like circle can be a cycle. It could be a ring of power. It could, whatever. But one thing we're absolutely doing is establishing this as a place where they're just like, it's flush with circles in the production design, which lends to it a certain, I don't want to say like circles are mysterious. That's a ridiculous thing to say. But like, even if your brain doesn't consciously notice the motif, like you are picking up on a place that feels different and unusual. Like, I don't know how often in like the architecture of like a normal house or a hospital do you just see like circles everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, never, because it's a very impractical shape. It's a decorative shape, right? And so the building is very, just chock full of this beautiful decorative woodwork that makes it feel simultaneously kind of like warm and hobbitish. Like that was one thing I was thinking about, was like it's very, in the daylight scenes, it's very Hobbit feeling, because all the Hobbit holes are semicircles, but then at night it feels very different because it's dark, obviously, but that makes it feel more eerie, and instead of feeling like a warm Hobbit hole, it feels like a cave that's kind of, the walls are kind of leering over you now. I just wanted to say I looked up a picture of the manor because I was going to make a comment about how it's like bright and yellow. And so obviously it looks like sunny and happy, but then of course in the dark, nothing looks yellow so it just looks dark. But the first image I found was a Minecraft version of Brightcliffe Hospice from the Midnight Club.
What?
Minecraft Hospice from the Midnight Club build.
Man,
with the time lapse.
This is wild. Like I love that. Like the good things about the internet is the fandom, like, is everywhere. There's enough, and that's so crazy to me.
Yeah, it does look like a really nice manor though, with this porch going around the outside, and
it's great.
Is the exterior CGI? Did we find that out?
I don't know. I get a lot of my information on some of this stuff from director's commentaries, of which there are, of course, none for this show because there's no disc, because Netflix. But yeah,
I thought it looked a little CGI, in part just because it doesn't seem like it almost seems too simultaneously gothic and cheerful.
Yeah,
I was like, no one would build a place like this in real life. Like no one builds a place with turrets. Full stop.
Sure. Fair.
All right. So I don't know.
So we get to the meeting of the Midnight Club. Wanted to at least start out pointing out one of the big changes, where what the Midnight Club said to each other in the book was, I belong to you. And in the show, they have a much more complicated chant. They say, to those before, to those after, to us now, and to those beyond, seen or unseen, here but not here. Gotta say, like the television show version a little bit better.
Yeah, I don't know that the one in the book ever really like came home to me. Like, what are we doing with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we tried to explain it as like what the book is kind of trying to paint is that these people are, through their circumstance and through what they're going through, are kind of connected to each other in a way that is more powerful and greater than they could possibly be connected to anyone else. I actually think, without using the line, I belong to you, I believe the show does sort of demonstrate this briefly with the phone call that Ilanka has with her best friend, who's now away at college 9 months after her diagnosis. It's right before Ilanka learns that she's terminal. And they're having a phone call and a conversation, and it's small talky, where her friend's talking about how easy and amazing college is, and there's certainly probably a little amount of jealousy there that her friend is getting to live the life that she thought she was going to live. But like, the conversation ends where Ilanka just like mid conversation, she says happy birthday, she's like, I gotta go, okay, bye, happy birthday, and then like her friend's still talking as she hangs up the phone, and like the context within the scene is she's witnessing Tim and her doctor talking and like wants to go check it out. But I think part of this is showing that this was her best friend, right? This was her best friend, and now that's gone. They can't really relate to each other anymore. And I think one of the things she says to her on the phone is how things are going at the hospital is, my only friend is my foster dad, which, I don't have any friends anymore. And so I think that this is a long way of saying that I belong to you thing was trying to separate this group of people from everyone else. And that's kind of what Ilanka in the book says about Kevin's girlfriend, is like, she's not yours, she's ours. I agree that I don't know how much that'll come across like via that line in the story. I just think this is a better mantra. I think, just full stop.
Yeah, I think it more connects to what we're probably going to do with things.
Yeah. So we enter the Midnight Club as Ilanka sneaks in the middle of a story by Natsuki, and Matt, what was your reaction to Natsuki's story? I'm probably saying her name, or is it Natsuki? I don't know. I'm bad at. I don't speak
Is this
Japanese.
the one? This is the jump scare one.
This is
correct?
the jump scare one. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, so I was very, first of all, okay, let's set the scene. Like, I was very interested because I'm like, okay, this is our first taste of what we're doing here, because I'm kind of expecting this to be something of an anthology show. I know you said it's not really, but like, it's going to have some of these stories embedded in it. So what are these stories going to be like? How is this going to feel? And it's like immediately evident that she's terrible at telling stories, and that and also I kind of felt like the show is kind of either making fun of us, the audience, for expecting a scary story and then getting, what is it, like 17 consecutive jump scares, but then also layered on top of that is the fact that Mike Flanagan is such a goddamn good filmmaker that like half of those jump scares are effective.
Yeah.
Because he lets it wait. Like, I love the one he gets you a few times and then he sees her in the distance and you're like, okay, it's going to be the thing where she's suddenly right in front of you screaming, but then it just like holds and holds.
It holds for so long.
And holds. And then you're like right at the moment when you're like, like, damn it.
I do wonder if there was a meeting about how long he held on that, where it's like, come on, you got to cut a few seconds out of that. And he's like, no.
No, it won't work. It's perfect.
Yeah, no, I think I think you're absolutely right in everything you just said. I think this is, Mike Flanagan doesn't love jump scares. And so, this again, now we're just speculating. Netflix is like, hey, you got to put more scary stuff in your show. It needs more scary stuff. It needs more upfront scary stuff. And I could just see Mike going, "Oh, you want jump scares?
Yeah.
All right, let's go. Let's fucking
Yeah.
go.
Right.
I'm gonna do them all. Yeah, this episode, by the way, has the current Guinness World Record for most jump scares in a single episode of television. There are 21 in this episode. They're not all in the Natsuki story. So it is counting the ones with the ghosts, like the mirror ghost, and the one she sees at the end of the hall. It's counting those as jump scares as well. But they're 21. And I think I literally saw an interview with Mike Flanagan where he said, "I'm going to get you, I'm going to get you first time, I'm going to get you the second time, and then you're going to think I'm not able to get you anymore, and I'm going to get you again, and then hopefully it'll work, and we're done with all this. I'll never have to do another one of these ever again."
Yeah. I'm just imagining him being like, all right, I'll negotiate. I'll put 17 jump scares in the show. And then he just puts them all in the first
episode. Yeah. I mean, there is definitely some taking the piss out of horror fans and maybe out of Netflix, but I also think this is like part of the fun of the show is that not only are these, and as you said, it is sort of an anthology series, but these are stories being told in an environment. The framing device is trope savvy teens that like know how all this stuff works and are going to have comments and thoughts about it. So like, not only do we get the absurdity of the jump scares, but then we get the characters being like, "That's lazy."
Yeah. We get the peanut gallery interrupting.
And also, you do the cat at the beginning, not halfway through. And that stuff's really fun too. And that's like, this is how, we talked about at the very beginning, like, this is a very dour show. This is a very sad show. The overarching topic of the show is very sad, but it is a very fun show. This was a funny episode. The jump scares had me chuckling every time when it's just like the part where at the very end where he's just going ham and it's just like one after another to the point where there's multiple versions of the ghost in the same scene.
Yeah.
It's just so good.
And I love that the actor, who is the victim of all of this, plays it like equally startled and shocked every time. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't work without that element, actually.
Yeah.
And I think like you, or like maybe we talked about before, all the actors in the skit are the kids.
Yeah. So yeah, interesting. Like, the main character of the story is not Natsuki doesn't put herself as the main character of the story. She puts Spence as the main character of the story.
Right.
So we'll have to pay attention to how all that plays out as the characters, as the kids continue to tell their stories and who plays what in those stories. And it's going to be a lot of fun. But then we get to Alanka's story, in which none of the kids are playing any of the people, because she's telling a quote unquote real story about Julia Jane, the person that disappeared and then came back cured. I just want to say, if you, the audience, are confused as to how you're supposed to feel about the story, the picture of Julia Jane that was in the newspaper and also in the framed photograph on the wall of Brightcliffe, she has the most ominous fucking smile on her face. Right? She looks terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, she looks like she knows an evil secret and can't wait to never tell you about it.
Yeah. Well, and also just the subject matter of the story is like, yes, she gets cured, but she has the ability to say people's death dates to them.
Yeah.
So there's something dark that has touched her. Yeah.
And there's something we're not exactly clear about, which is like how much of the story that Alanka just told to the group was bullshit that she made up and how much of it was true. Right. Like,
right.
I think what she says when Kevin asks her is like, yeah, Julia Jane was a real person here. She disappeared for a week. She came back and she was in remission. And she left. But maybe the date stuff was just a little Alanka flourish to it. It's a fun flourish. I really like that recurring beat. It helps make the story itself pretty creepy. Yeah, I think this is a great episode of like, we get to see the two sides of what these stories within the story are going to be, right? Because Natsuki's is like bad by design, right? Like, I think we talked about this with the book, right? Spence's stories in the book were like not good. Like they were not well crafted stories because he's a kid, and like not all people are just like naturally gifted storytellers. But we get to see Alanka is a pretty good storyteller. Like we get to hear her voiceover throughout the entire story explaining it to us, and it is a pretty well crafted, effective story. It gets everyone's attention. She works through the immediate, like, this is a story about a girl who just found out she was dying. And I love everyone's reaction to that. It's like, oh, come on. We can't do that. They call it masturbatory, I think.
Yeah.
But she gets through them and piques their interest and tells this wonderful thing about those dates. She's a good storyteller. And so we get to, in this one episode, see the gamut of what these stories are going to look like, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the nice thing about even Spence's stories that weren't like technically good stories, they still contained all this stuff that we were able to, extract, where it's like, well, this says a lot about who Spence is and what preoccupies him.
Yes.
And I can't say that there's a lot in the first story that I can analyze, because it's just so silly. It's just like self-consciously silly.
It's an interesting choice. I think ultimately a good choice, but basically what we're told here is that this is like day 3 of the story. So we and Alanka are entering the story at its end. And so there really is nothing, there's some vague stuff about some song that this guy heard from a concert that's like getting into his head and messing with him. But we know so much. We don't know anything about it. And I think it's like a cool idea, because like it's slowly, like, I think there's a version of the show where they just tell like the whole Natsuki story in the episode, right? And I feel like we need to kind of be guided into the concept of the Midnight Club a little bit, and having Alanka just come at the tail end of it, where we get the basic understanding and idea, but we don't actually yet have to focus on, well, what does the story say about this character and what she's doing? And like, we don't, this episode has so much in it. There's so much plot in it to get everything set up. I think it doesn't want to do that to us yet.
I mean, even just on the very like high level of pacing and tone, it works really well to break up this episode with basically a comedy beat.
Yeah.
Not just beat, but a comedy segment, and then we segue that into her ending story. And like I feel like that's one of the things that actually makes the episode feel quite nicely paced overall, and tonally evened out. Because if it didn't, I mean, just imagine if that wasn't there, just like mentally subtract that section from the episode, it would lose one of its tonal high points, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I also think, using our old short fiction versus novel rules of that each have different rules of engagement and things you can get away with and not. If the show took the time to tell us this entire story that Natsuki tells us, and at the end beat of that entire story is just essentially a punchline that's just like, isn't it funny how many jump scares we're doing? Then I think maybe we'd be a little bit more annoyed than we are amused. But because we have no context of the earlier part of the story, we, the audience, just find it funny. And it's also funny the way the audience within the show, being the rest of the Midnight Club, is annoyed because you spent 3 days telling the story and it's devolving just into 30 jump scares. That just works.
And what really works, by the way, like what kind of makes it for me, is they're making fun of her and criticizing her for all of her jump scares, and then Alanka knocks something over and jump scares all of them.
Yes.
and they all freak out, and it's actually just very funny and like clever, right? I really like that moment.
Yeah. So I good. I don't know. Good stories. I really liked the stories in this one. Funny one, and then Julia Jane. We haven't talked about Dr. Georgina Stanton very much. What does the name Heather Langenkamp mean to you, Matt?
I don't think I recognize it.
Okay. So she played Nancy in A Nightmare on Elm Street. She was in the very first Elm Street film. She played the final girl in that movie. So this is fun. It's not. I want to be. I don't want to call it stunt casting in and of itself, because that feels like we just did it for this reason and she brings nothing to the character. But it's also like fun. She's like horror royalty in a way, right? And so it's fun to see her here. So,
okay, cool.
Something I knew you wouldn't appreciate, because I don't even think you've seen that movie, but I certainly did appreciate.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that movie either.
Gonna have to fix that
Someday.
Anything else you wanted to talk about?
Sorry. I think I hit. Let me see. I think I hit my list. Yeah, I talked about the dialogue being fantastic. Talked about how hard it was to recognize some of our characters when they're playing totally off type. I mean, I just want to hit that one more time. Like, I continue to love that Flanagan will reuse the same actors, but like instead of typecasting them and being like, yeah, you make a really good brooding leading man, I'm going to use you as a brooding leading man again. He's like, I'm going to use you as a cheerful nurse practitioner who just has a totally different attitude.
Yeah.
And it does that with everybody. Does that with everybody constantly.
Yeah, for sure. There was a name in the opening credits that did not appear in this episode. I was wondering if you noticed it.
No, sorry.
Samantha Sloyan was in the credits. She's not in this episode.
I think now that you mentioned that, I think I did, and then I forgot. But yeah, cool.
So I'm
excited.
Yeah,
she's the best.
I don't know when we're gonna get to see her. I don't know. I mean, I do know, but I don't know.
Okay. I don't know either.
Yeah, we'll get to talk about her over the next few weeks.
Cool.
Maybe she'll be Bev Keane again, but maybe not, Matt. You don't know.
Maybe not. She can do many things.
So, a couple things I want to ask you, some fun things. Do high schools have a senior thesis?
I don't think mine did. I mean, some kind of senior project might not be out of the question, but like I think it just depends on the high school. Mine did not.
I don't think anybody in my high school, which was like probably about as big as Alanka's, would have been able to write a senior thesis on the topic of either Shakespeare or Mary Shelley and the origin of science fiction. I guess I want to ask us to put it out to our listeners, right? Did any of you go to a high school that had a senior thesis?
I mean, like, I definitely had to write increasingly long papers as I got more into like English. So there might have been some paper that was like the longest one that I wrote.
Yeah.
And I guess you could call that the senior thesis.
I guess a thesis has a connotation to me that is like more hardcore than high school.
Yeah.
Was.
Like, sure. Like your master's thesis or something where it's supposed to be like 100 pages. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I definitely wrote some pretty long papers toward the end of high school. They were graded so harshly. Mm-hmm. This day, I've never recovered.
It's gonna be okay, Matt.
So my kids get assigned to these like end of elementary school projects. Which are really just homework for me.
Cool.
Because it's like because the projects are like they're like giving the kids like a charity project, and I'm like, who do you think is going to organize this charity project? who is actually responsible for this charity project? Is it my 12-year-old? Yeah. Right. Yeah.
That's no fun.
Yeah.
Some cool details I really liked in the show that I couldn't figure out a way to organically bring in elsewhere. We cut from Alanka washing her hands after she's coughed into her hands. Not directly, but we pretty rapidly cut from there to her sitting at the nurse's or in the doctor's office getting the news about her cancer, and her nail polish has been picked almost clean. And I just think that's a really great like visual motif of showing the passage of time, but also showing like the destruction of like she had
the dream.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I really like the detail of her 18th birthday cake in the hospital. Not only are the candles not lit, but they're mismatched, which really helps. They're like two different color of the number candles, which helps really enforce this idea that like this is her 18th birthday and it's here. It's in this hospital. It's with mismatched candles that we can't even light. She's got her father standing there, the doctor that Matt hates, and then there's just like 2 nurses behind them, and that's it. That's her birthday.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I'm wrong that like Ilanka also hates this doctor.
Oh, certainly.
Like, and the fact that she's one of the only people at the she's the face of all of the darkness of this. Like her being present there, where she's like, well, we're not going to light candles. We're not going to make an exception for you. Not that it would matter if we lit a candle for a second. No, it's a hospital. Just very sad and emphasizing the like you're being robbed of everything that was special and the way things were supposed to be in your life.
Yeah,
it's great.
One other little fun piece of trivia for you, Matt. When we are learning the history of Brightcliffe, we learn that the original builder of it was a man named Stanley Oscar Freeland. This is a nod to the builder of the original Stanley Hotel, who is a man named Freeland Oscar Stanley. So this is a direct reference to the Stanley Hotel, which of course is the place where The Shining was born. So it's a fun little thing Mike snuck in there. Which, by the way, I want to ask you this question, and maybe I'm just going insane, but there's a shot when they're driving to Brightcliffe, and it's this helicopter shot. As they're driving, it's not along like a big lake, but it's along the ocean side. And it just gave me Shining vibes. It just gave me the vibes of that helicopter shot from The Shining, where they're driving up the mountains to the hotel, to the overlook.
Yeah. Well, I can't say that occurred to me exactly, but I did get a strong feeling of liminality as they move from, as you said, this sort of expected environs of the suburban America through this like dense, almost jungle. The way the car is moving through the thick overhanging trees felt like we're moving into a different realm.
Sure,
I was very aware of that.
Sure. I do have I'm just gonna put this question out in the world. Like, there's a couple lines in this that got me thinking, and I haven't ever analyzed this, and now I kind of want to go back and rewatch everything we've done up until this point, but there's some things that I think maybe are just like Flanaganisms. So there's one when Cherie is meeting Ilanka. At the end of the conversation, she just says, "Nice to meet." And I just I don't hear that often. So that stuck out to me. It's like, that's an interesting way of saying nice to, 99% of people say like, nice to meet you. It's like, nice to meet. And that wouldn't have stuck out to me at all, except there's another line when Amesh and Spence are joking about the hazing that happens to the newbies. Spence says there's none hazing. And that's not how you would say that normally. And I'm just like, those stuck out to me. It was like, are these just like, this is kind of how Mike talks a little bit and just works his way into its writing? I don't know.
I mean, I think both of those strike me as like the lazy way that people actually do talk sometimes, where like,
sure,
but like, or like you go to say nice to meet you, but you kind of clip it off. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet. Like I get very lazy and southern a lot of the time when I'm, especially if I'm like around people and I can relax and not, articulate.
Sure.
If you'll believe it, this is me articulating. Like I just feel it makes you buy it. For me, it makes you buy it more. Like, these are normal people, and the way normal people talk is they don't necessarily always enunciate or speak perfectly.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not offering this as like a criticism of the writing or the speaking at all. It just stuck out to me in an interesting way. Like, I wonder if this is just like a conscious choice to like flavor up the dialogue a little bit and make it sound a little different, and maybe make it sound like how people sometimes just change things randomly as they talk, because like people don't always talk formally constantly. You're absolutely right. Or if it's just like, these are just Flanaganisms. I don't know, but it's fun to think about. I'm going to start paying attention to things like that more. I feel like the reason why it really occurred to me is I feel like we had another one of those a few weeks ago, and I can't remember what it was now. And it's frustrating me. So I'm just gonna start paying attention to it. Of just like slight variations on the way you would say common expressions in a way that jumps out. I'm gonna start cataloging those.
Good idea.
I think it is a fun thing. You're like sitting there in front of a script, like writing dialogue like all day, and I just want a little spice in the stuff.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah, I do too.
Cool. All right. Well, I believe we've covered episode 1 of the Midnight Club. That was fun. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. Me too.
Pretty good episode of TV. Lots to set up. I'm gonna tell you the name of episode 2 now, Matt, and I think you're gonna recognize it.
Okay.
Because the name of episode 2 of the Midnight Club is titled "The Two Danas." So I think
it's gonna be the two faces.
What?
What?
Like from Henry James?
No, it's the other story from the novel that we just read.
I'm trying to have fun, and you just ruin it. Just ruin all my fun.
I thought for a second I was trying to make some galaxy brain connection between the story of the two faces from Henry James and the story from the Midnight Club about the two versions, but I didn't get there.
Yeah,
so.
That would have been really cool.
Yeah.
If only we could go back in time.
Next week. We'll try again next week.
All right. So yeah, next episode is the two Danas.
All right.
Let's move on to the discussion question. We, of course, don't have anything to read this week, I believe, because I think our episode 2 weeks ago was our overview of Midnight Mass. So nothing from that one. By the way, thank you. Lots of positive reaction on that episode from people. Once again, want to thank Pastor Philip for coming on. I appreciate y'all saying all the kind words. I know he appreciates them as well. So.
Yeah, appreciate all the comments on that one. Yeah. Even with no discussion question, people really had a lot to say, and that was awesome. Yeah. But the next week's discussion question is, what's your favorite ensemble of teenagers? Period. Across everything.
I like this question a lot. Lots of teenage ensembles. Lots of fun stuff to do there.
Yeah, I feel like we've asked maybe like narrower versions of this before, but I like broadening this up because there are it's a common trope because it's a good trope, Yeah. I can think of a bunch of different things, examples from like wildly different things. So I'm really expecting a very wide variety of answers this week. That'll be cool.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear those too. Cool. All right. So that is going to do it for this week. As we said, episode 2 of the Midnight Club picks up where we left off next week with the two Danas.
That's right. Remember, you can reach us via email at flanaganswakepod@gmail.com or over on X at flanaganswake19. You can leave the answer to that discussion question over on reddit.com/r/doofmedia on the thread associated with this episode. Also, don't forget that every episode can be found in video format on YouTube and Spotify. So if you're watching on either of those places, please leave us a comment and let us know what you think.
How long ago did Twitter change to X?
10 years. I don't know. Between 1 and 3 years.
It feels like forever ago, but I still, every time you say it, I'm just like, that's so stupid.
Yeah. I still call it Twitter almost all the time, and I call them tweets. Apparently it was July 2023 that it changed over, and I'm just never going to stop calling it Twitter. I'm sorry.
Almost 3 years?
Yeah.
It's stupid. It's so stupid. Anyway, if you want to support us via merchandise, you can do so at doofmedia.myshopify.com. We don't have any specific Midnight Club merch as of right now, but there's plenty of stuff for a bunch of other Flanagan stuff. There's plenty of stuff just for us. We have for Kingslingers, for Flanagan's Wake, for Doof Media in general. Tons of cool stuff there. Please check it out. doofmedia.myshopify.com.
Yeah, and if you like any of our shows and you want to support them, then please consider donating to our Patreon account at patreon.com/doofmedia. We've got a bunch of bonus podcasts over there covering Stephen King adaptations, and currently our current feature that me and Scott are going through is the TV show From. Every couple of weeks we have a new episode of that, so go check it out.
Matt, do you want to talk about the thing that you just launched tonight as we sit down and record?
Sure. Yeah, I just launched a new experimental thing where it's going to be a choose your own adventure fiction collaborative experiment with all of you, where I am going to, at some regular interval that I haven't quite decided yet, I'm going to post a little bit of a story, and then I'm going to end the story with a little poll and let you, the patrons, decide what happens next from a list of options, of course. And the more audience participation, the better, because that will help me kind of sculpt the options and directions people are interested in. The story should have started by the time you get this, by the time you're listening to this, but there's no better time to jump on the bandwagon than now. So go check that out over on the Patreon.
Yeah, and I believe that's public, right? That's free to all paying, or is it a paying only?
It's at the $5 level.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But you can read the intro pitch for free. So I set it up so that everyone can see the intro pitch at least.
Well, that's very exciting. I'm excited for you. I'm excited to read it, and I hope everyone enjoys that. So yeah, head to Patreon to check that out.
Yeah.
But of course, if you cannot afford to be part of our Patreon, we understand that. You can help us out by sharing this podcast. You can help us out by leaving ratings and reviews. We do have a couple new reviews, Matt. I'm going to read one of them today and save one of them for next week. But we have from Comics Rats, who gives us 5 stars and says, my favorite podcast. I look forward to listening every week. Been a listener since Kingslingers and always look forward to the insightful analysis and humorous discussion of Flanagan's work. I love getting a much deeper appreciation for the work through listening to Matt and Scott. Keep up the good work, long days and pleasant nights, and rest in peace, Mr. Flanagan.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, Comics Rats. And thank you to all of you who send those in. We really love them and we really do appreciate them. So please keep them coming. They're fun to read. I like to read them. I like to hear them.
Yeah.
I like it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I like it.
All right, folks. I think that was a good first episode. I hope you guys are enjoying the Midnight Club, but let us know what you're thinking of it so far. And we'll continue next week with episode 2. Until then, as Comics Rats says, Mr. Flanagan, check in to Brightcliffe. The shadow is following you. It's getting closer.
Oh my God.
It's getting closer every day.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Comes for us all.
Yep. Some sooner than others. Miss Flanagan. Are you sinking in your chair?